What's up, kin folks? It's RJ Young. I'm not on step, but considering the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about Texas and the fallout, and we're going to talk to my buddy Kaelen in just a second. He's the athletic beat writer for the Texas Longhorns, and he has been a busy man, as many of you know, because Tom Herman decided to make some changes, as you know. We're going to get to him in about 10 minutes time. But I want to take this time to just say first, hey, how are you? How you doing? And second, to just kind of get us off and rolling with a little monologue, little rant. So, I got a take, as I want to have takes. That's actually the job. So, when we look at Texas and we look around the country, and we do this thing where we want to compare Texas to the upper echelon of college football, and yet they continue to fall short. Because as my man Bomani points out on a regular basis, who is a Texas fan, Texas has won 7 outright conference titles in the last 40 years. Texas has been perfectly mediocre since desegregation. Matter of fact, Texas still has I don't know if you would call this a good thing or a bad thing, that they're the last national championship team to win with an all-white squad. But I'm bringing that all up to say, when has Texas actually been considered year-to-year elite, right? Because Mac Brown, won a national championship in 2005. Also took 5 straight losses to Oklahoma. It's not a thing that normally gets to go on and you continue to keep your job. But when you hire Joe Jamel to do your work, you get to keep your job. Now, who else has taken 5 straight losses against the only team he cannot take losses against? That'd be Jim Harbaugh against Ohio State. Now, Jim Harbaugh, Mac Brown, both excellent coaches. But at their institutions, you have to win that game. Texas has to beat Oklahoma. Michigan has to beat Ohio State. Except for some, it means more than it does to others. I think Ohio State lives to beat the hell out of Michigan. They can't stand Michigan. They hate everything Michigan stands for. In the same way that I don't like a royalist, in the same way that I'm not really going to get with this holier-than-thou mix of college football, the dude that wears the tie to the football game is asking for a beating, all right? It's also Michigan, which is to say that you have the Detroit Pistons, you have the Detroit Red Wings, you have the Detroit Lions, you have the Detroit Tigers. You have options, as they say. Austin, you got Austin City Limits, you got South by Southwest, San Antonio Spurs are just up that way, you can go to Houston just down that way, you're this close to the beach. There's all sorts of great things to do in the city of Austin, one of the fastest growing cities in all the country, okay? Gave rise to Richard Linklater and their minister of culture, whom continues to walk around in that ugly hat. In Oklahoma, as they're wont to say at Texas, Norman ain't got a whole lot going on. Never mind that Oklahoma City's got thunder. It's not the point. Point that I'm making here is Oklahoma is a lot like Nebraska in that we care about football. We love football. We love football so much that the Oklahoma State Cowboys Barstool account tries to poke fun at Oklahoma by claiming wrestling championships, to which OU fans are like, we actually don't care. At Oklahoma, Lon Kruger makes a Final Four in men's basketball. And OU fans are like, that's nice. It's nice not to be embarrassed. It's nice. But Lincoln Riley makes the college football playoff 2 consecutive times. He's looking for a third. And no, Oklahoma's not going, cool, we won 10 wins and we got more 10-win seasons than anybody else. It's not going, cool, we style on Oklahoma State every single year. It's not going, cool, we even make the college football playoff. It's, I refuse to allow you to lose to Texas on a regular basis. It's just not going to be a thing that we're okay with. For whatever reason, they seem to be okay with this at Texas, even as the alumni base is gargantuan, even as they have more money than anybody else in all of college football. 7-5. They have to play 14 games to win 10. That is not a good winning percentage, okay? They've had 10 straight years of 4 losses or more, which makes them way more like Texas A&M than like Oklahoma, which is why many of us want to see that rivalry rekindle, because I honestly miss seeing it on Thanksgiving. I like seeing these two programs hate each other and talk noise about each other in a way that only they can. I look at a place like USC, which has similar tradition to Texas, and I look at what they expect Clay Helton to do. And the idea that Clay Helton has not been fired for going 8-4 also underscores how it doesn't matter in USC as much as it matters even at Houston, to which they looked at a Texas grad. They looked at a man that was hired as an offensive coordinator for Nick Saban, and they said, we will fire you for going 8-5. And so he goes 8-5, getting skull dragged by Army, getting 70 dropped on you by Army, and they fire Major Applewhite. They fire one of the best products to ever come out of the state of Texas, let alone the Texas Longhorns. And yet, Texas is going to endure Tom Herman going 7-5. Forget the staff changes. That's going to happen. You can't stand pat with this. It's not going to happen. Not the way that you lost and not whom you lost to. The same Texas Christian team that beat Texas is the one that lost to West Virginia. It ain't going to be all right. Okay? It's not going to be okay. I don't know what you can expect from this team next year if Tom Herman does not make some changes to the offensive philosophy, let alone who the coordinator is. Because I kind of think that Tim Beck was a lame duck at offensive coordinator anyway, because Tom Herman would never come out and say who's calling the plays. He'd always talk about it's kind of a community thing. You're not a communal leader, Tom. You're very much, I'm in charge here. And you're the guy walking around with a play card, talking into a microphone. I know who's calling the plays. I understand you don't want to say who's calling the plays, but I know who's calling the plays. And as bad as Todd Orlando's defense was, he also had like 8 new dudes out there because they were all hurt. Maybe it's time to start talking to Yancey McKnight about what's going on in his strength and conditioning room. But before you get there, he's told other dudes, hey, you're going to be off the field this year. You're in. You're going to go in. He's made his recruiting coordinator a temporary on-staff employee so that they can go recruiting. Brian Carrington is in the car with Tom Herman. That's where they're at right now. All right? So as we continue to talk about who the offensive coordinator might be, who the defensive coordinator might be, I've been throwing Chris Ash out there for a little bit, maybe Rhett Lashley out at Southern Methodist because they run a similar kind of scheme, but that would also mean that Tom Herman would have to let go of the controls. And I'm not ready to say that he is. All things that are used that we need to take into account. See what we got here. John is giving insults about Oklahoma being Oklahoma. Yo, man, is that all you got? Because if that's all you got, then you're wasting our time. Let's see. Thank you. I don't think Yancey is all everyone makes him out to be. He's good with Tom. They're cool. You don't have options in Michigan. Okay. Who on earth Texas gets for defense? I don't know. Rise of Mercury, what's good? I see you. Yeah, Michael, you're not going to be able to cuss in the chat. I don't cuss on the channel, and I'm profane by nature. I just have a tremendous amount of respect for all the people who watch this channel and listen to this channel. So if I can't cuss, you know you can't cuss. I'm not going to allow you to cuss. No, we're not doing that. Let's see. Let's give Kaelen a call.
What's up, man?
Hey, buddy. So this is my buddy, Kaelen Jones. He is the Texas Longhorns beat writer for The Athletic. You have been a busy man, sir.
Yeah, I have. It's been obviously, RJ, this is my first year on the beat. So,
yeah.
The first time I talked to you, and I remember reading a comment. Some dude was like, RJ knows way more. And I'm like, you probably still do. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, I have no clue what I'm doing. But at this point, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But now the ship, has been rocked all over again. So I'm just kind of, getting through these past couple of days. I knew, you knew the storm was coming. You could see it in the distance. but I did not expect it to come this soon. So it's been a wild few days.
Well, first of all, bump the commenters, dog, because like I'm reading your columns and they real good. Like I've enjoyed. You wrote a piece about Parker Braun that I didn't think got enough praise, and I was planning
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I was planning to actually blog about it, but like, yeah, that dude's remarkable and that family's remarkable, and I just didn't expect to read that. So that was awesome.
Oh yeah, appreciate you, man. Seriously, appreciate that.
Nah, just you doing work. You doing work. And by the way, it ain't easy being on this beat. It's never been easy being on this beat. So like, if any, I was about to say if that was part of the sales pitch, nah, it's cool. It's nothing. No pressure. Now that you know what this is like after a full year, 12 games of this, what's your sense of the building? What's your sense of the program and where it is right now?
Dang, man. And it's interesting because you could see Tom Herman kind of go through, I guess, like he's very much more self-reflect. Like it's humbling. He's been humbled. Like, last year you had the success. And really, when you look at it, the fact that Texas was able to rip off that 10-win season without, I guess, in my opinion, that talented of a team. When you look at the fact that they were able to sustain that kind of, results and get to, put themselves on the precipice of, proverbially being back. I think, this year was extremely humbling for the entire program. I think there's been a lot of self-reflection. And the fact that, he's made the hasty decision or drastic decisions of having to, remove people who have been been integral to his success throughout the entire course of, his head coaching career so far. When you talk about Tim Beck and Todd Orlando, like the reassigning Tim Beck and then, ultimately firing Orlando. I mean, that says a lot about, what he's doing and what he's, viewing and where his, I guess, like head is in terms of what the direction is of this program. Because he said it over and over again. Like him and Chris Del Conte are on the same page. Like they believe the program is headed in the right direction. And I tend to believe that too. But at the same time, they need the results to be immediate. Like this at Texas, they cannot afford, for 4-year rebuilds. It has to be immediate and it has to come fast. So, he's at the point where it's extremely pivotal and he's made, kind of put the cards out on the table and said, hey, this is what I got to do to elevate the program to where it's expected to be. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But it's definitely been a wild roller coaster over the past few days for sure.
Right. I mean, you actually pointed out in your column that Drew Mehringer and Tom Herman had been basically tied at the hip through 5 different programs since like 2007. And I've known that guy as an excellent recruiter. I mean, he's the reason that Brew McCoy was in the boat. He's the reason Jake Smith is the heir apparent to Devin Duvernay out there. And we could talk about what they got coming back and what they got leaving, but what's your sense about the offense in particular? Because we can talk about the defensive coordinator position, I understand that, but like the way that they were getting shut down as of late with this power spread that is his baby. Like it's his offense. It's what he ran so well at Ohio State and what he's built his legacy on. Is he willing to let that go?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing. That will be the ultimate test of his humility. Will Tom Herman be willing to let go of, the offense that he calls and allow someone else to really, try to revamp and take advantage of the weapons that he has available? Because, I mean, let's face it, that Texas offensive line did not look good from, probably before the midway point through the year on. Like, it struggled. Even Samuel Cosme at times, whether it was getting penalties or, somehow getting beat by these edge rushers, like it wasn't coming together for Texas offensive line this year at all. And even when they ran the football, it looked really inconsistent. Like you didn't really see them. Like as games wore on, and I think that's the mark of a good offensive line. As games wore on, they were able to, get more control of the line of scrimmage as games progressed. But the problem, like they weren't dominant. It was not a dominant unit really at any point of the campaign. I think that's where the biggest issue lies. And, moving forward, like you mentioned, getting rid of the power spread or potentially getting rid of the power spread or revamping it. I mean, there's weapons on the outside that still are present. I think when you look at the way they were using Brennan Eagles, the way they're using Malcolm Epps, like the manner in which they were using those two guys, you're probably going to maximize Eagles as, someone who's a vertical receiver going to get downfield, isn't, the sharpest route runner. Same with Malcolm Epps, someone who in the mold of Kalin Johnson is kind of a safety valve possession receiver, a good guy in the boundary to have. But at the same time, we'll see how quickly, Jake Smith's progression comes along. Like, we saw him burst out at the beginning of the year. Then he kind of tailed off and hit the proverbial freshman wall through the midway of the season. Then the last 2 games kind of showed up again. Like, the talent is obviously there. And then I think the biggest question, and I think it's been an underlying question mark that really can't be overstated, the fact that Texas did not have Jordan Whittington, who I think ultimately would have been a bigger difference maker probably than Devin Duvernay or Kalin Johnson. If you're talking about, that one player. You know how Oklahoma has a CeeDee Lamb? Texas does not have a player like that. And I think Jordan Whittington is that caliber of player, potentially, first-round pick in the NFL draft if he, ends up staying healthy and reaches the potential that is believed of him, both internally and externally. And I think having him back and what they decide to do with him and how they use him moving forward will be really significant in regards to how successful the offense is next year. And, I haven't even mentioned him, but Sam Ehlinger, having him come back is especially huge because, again, like he's shown before, he's capable of playing, at the level of elite college football quarterback. But the question is, whether or not he's going to be included in a system that maximizes his talents moving forward, or whether or not they want to go to something that, gets the ball out of his hands more quickly moving forward. I think that's what remains to be seen and really is, going to be the most interesting thing to watch.
The positives from this Texas, let's call it a campaign, like the positive from the campaign. Sam Ehlinger did progress as a passer. He got better. Mm-hmm. He's not elite, but we also know that Tom Herman is a really good judge of talent. It's about how they use that talent because I continue to cite for people, Joe Burrow was brought to Urban Meyer by Tom Herman, and he told him, hey, I found your Alex Smith, and Urban didn't really believe him. They had a battle. Joe Burrow went into the portal, went to LSU, ran an antiquated offense. They overhauled it, right, with what we all know as a modern passing attack and a modern form of playing offensive football with a dude that came out of William and Mary and was essentially also ran assistant for the New Orleans Saints. And they said, no, we're just going to do this and not that. And the idea that Herman would be able to marry his recruiting savvy with a guy that he could really just trust to run the offense or run the defense is also how you draw it up for most head coaches that succeed. I mean, Dabo Swinney is not the most intelligent football guy in the world. He'd tell you that. But he doesn't have to be. He hires people, he pays them what they're worth, and he goes and he closes your deals and gets you your 5 stars to go run your defense. I want to see, as you pointed out with the humility, whether or not Tom Herman is willing to be that guy. Because there's only a handful of dudes that look like they can get away with being the play caller and the head coach, but how many of them win a national championship? And that's essentially what both Texas and Oklahoma are chasing for that matter. And to your point about Jordan Whittington, yes, because you have tools. But I also want to add to this with the movement that you've seen with the offensive assistants and the defensive assistants and whatnot. 2 things. First is, how bold is that to do friggin' 16 days before signing day?
I mean, that's the crazy part, right?
Right.
And it was so, nerve-wracking because the first recruit or first commit that Texas had react on social was a decommitment, like a defensive player.
Right.
And he decommitted. And in my head, I'm thinking, wow, what if they end up losing everybody else? And all of a sudden the other recruits start, tweeting their little Longhorn or hookums and tweeting their support and everything else. I talked to a few and they're like, yeah, we're good. And so they're solid. So it was really nerve-wracking. We'll see what happens on signing day because there's still, like you said, there's still 2 weeks before that period. But, I mean, man, it's extremely bold. And it says a lot. It speaks to the faith that they have in Brian Carrington, too, the recruiting director who they elevated to a full-time, interim position so that he can go out and hit the road and kind of reassure the recruits the direction of the program. Because, again, I mean, I can speak to Drew Mehringer, like you mentioned, like a lot of former players' parents, for example, they mentioned how important Drew was and how influential he was in a lot of these different players' recruitment. So I think losing him could ultimately be costly, but we'll see. I mean, they have a lot of faith in Brian Carrington.
And that dude has been particularly interesting, and the few times that he's been talking to people, on the record, and especially when I get to listen to him, what he has to say, also came by Houston, correct? He traveled with the staff?
Yes, he was he's a Houston alum.
Okay. So he understands being able to go and get Ed Oliver. he understands being able to help you close on some of these kiddos that are high value targets for most everybody else. Question I have is, now that he's elevated to the on the field role, is there any way in which he can keep one, or is he going to go back to being recruiting director as soon as this early signings period ends and the staff gets filled out in January?
It wouldn't surprise me at all if he actually ended up keeping a coaching position, because again, like you had Tim Beck, you had Drew Mehringer, who really were the spearheading the recruiting effort outside of Jason Washington. And so I think that he'll end up being on staff. Again, like the role, the official title, I think that remains to be seen, because again, they were pretty vague about it in the press release that they put out. But again, like I think he'll end up being one of those 10 full-time staffers. It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Now that we know that this is out there, right? And we know that they're going to be shopping for assistants, and you're telling the recruits, do you believe in me? Do you believe in what we're going to do? It's not unlike what Lincoln Riley had to do last year when he had to close strong without a defensive coordinator, right? And he had to get all of his kids that were already on the roster, let alone the ones that he's recruiting, to buy into whomever he decided to go get. So you're going to have to do that all over again. My next question was, really, honestly, what do you expect from Texas next year if you're a Texas fan? Do you expect all of a sudden to win 10 games, to win 11 games, to be back in the Big 12 championship game? Or what's it going to take for you to believe in Tom Herman past year 4?
I mean, if you're looking for a barometer of whether or not he passes, I think 9-10 wins and a Big 12 title appearance at the very least, like that. And that was the goal this year, really and truly. But again, the goals are the same. But that being said, I think you mentioned it earlier, the good positive things, and it really is something that Herman talked about post-game following the season finale, was the fact that they had so many young players, particularly on defense. Again, they were replacing 8 full-time starters to begin with, and then seven of their starters for this season on the opening depth chart, were underclassmen. So all those guys have experience. I mean, after the game, it was hilarious to me, speaking with, sophomore linebacker Joe Tsai, and he starts talking, like I asked him about, how great was it having the young players get so much experience this year? He's like, yeah, it was good for them. I'm like, dude, you are a sophomore. What do you mean them? This was your first year starting. So, I mean, I think it's going to be monumental for them moving forward. I think the defense is going to be, they won't be, I won't say they'll be great, but they will be significantly improved, or at least that should be the expectation. And then again, you're bringing back Sam Ehlinger with a lot of talent on offense. I think there should be higher expectations. But that being said, I think the expectations probably were a little bit bloated last year coming into this year, even if, internally they're thinking, Big 12 title game, like being contented for that, sure. But again, I think when you look at the expectations for what they have coming back, and what they should be, even regardless of, who ends up being offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, the talent is definitely there. And the experience is there. Like, this year was your year where you could say, these players are inexperienced. I mean, even the ones that, saw some time in the Sugar Bowl, that's great and all, but they weren't really battle tested throughout the entire course of the year. Like, example, you have Joe Tsai, who started, I believe, 4 games. He appeared in all 14, but it's not like you're seeing on the field, like, full-time starting jobs. So I think that experience cannot be overstated. I don't think so at all. And that being said, the question mark is whether or not, a new offensive coordinator can step right in, or a new defensive coordinator can step right in and elevate, the talent that they have right now and lead to better results. I think you saw that in Herman's first season. I mean, when Todd Orlando first stepped in, when Tim Beck first stepped in, both units improved significantly from what they did in Charlie Strong's final year. So I think you'll see that kind of rejuvenation, just not only from a player perspective where you're happy about, or excited about being in a new system and having another shot at getting back to where they are. But, I mean, you look at the coaching staff, like Tom Herman is fully aware, like, what is at stake here? Like, if he does not produce the season that is expected, then this is it. So I expect him to have, more – to take a really, really good approach, because again, like, if he doesn't get this right, then he's out.
I thought back to something I read that you wrote, which was Max Olson interviewing Tom Herman about, hey, how many of these guys are on a hot seat? Could you end up letting Todd Orlando go or whatnot? It's like, hey, he's got 1.7 left on his deal and it's 2 years in. He's going, hey, we're we're the University of Texas. We're not going to keep you because we're going to be out of a couple grand. That's not how we're going to do our jobs here.
Right.
That said, knowing that you're going to be able to go get the coordinators you want to get because you have the money to pay whomever you can go get, that's not going to be an issue. I wonder, what's he going to do with all these analysts? Because, yeah, you're taking whistles from guys and you're moving them down, you're moving some other guys up. But the guys with names that have connections to Herman and even have been mentioned as analysts that are working unpaid or might have come and then left, like Beatty, or I'm thinking of Larry Fedora, I'm thinking of Chris Ash, I'm thinking of all these guys that have names unto themselves, and most of them have been head coaches, and how beloved he is among college football coaches. Like, I sent some text yesterday just trying to figure out what people think about it to some coordinators and assistants and whatnot, and it was, I like that dude. I think that he's an excellent coach. I think that the way that he goes about his business with his iron rod in his back about, I'm doing it my way. Yes, this is not the standard for what I want to do, but I'm never going to kowtow to what it is you want me to do. And I'm always going to speak my mind, even if I come off sounding a little bit tone deaf. I'm thinking of saying, I have some elite players, or being out about, hey, I don't think I don't think Sam should have been out there saying we're back because he rolled his eyes at it. And I'm going, okay, Tom is just not here for any of this. But that's also the kind of guy that most coaches want to work for, because they know that if it comes time to back you up, he's going to back you up. So I don't think that there's anybody that wouldn't want to work for him too. And I think that's what he's ultimately got going for him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he really knows how to come off as personable. I think, the way that he runs the ship is really admirable. And I think, the players, reporters roll their eyes at it too. Like, they'll say, Zach Shackelford, for example, all year, he said the proverbial right thing, Right. He'd repeat, like, the mantras that all the coaches give them, would never give, like, real answers, stuff like that. Look, man, like, you have your ship running that sharp, then good for you. I mean, the one time where you did have to slip up, where you had Samuel Cosme going into the Oklahoma game saying, well, they're not that good. Well, Samuel Cosme, unfortunately, Texas did not have 5 Samuel Cosmes across their offensive line. So it's great that you're beating your guy, but the rest of the unit was struggling. So I think that was the only time that, you really had a player screw up in front of the media, and he never spoke to us again for the entire season. So
I didn't know that.
He did not speak to us again. So, wow. I mean, it is what it is. But again, like, I think Tom Herman is really respected. He wouldn't have this, sort of ascent, I think, without, having people admire him. Not just, obviously you fall in the right situations. I can speak to this. If you fall in the right situation, you kind of fast track your career. And I think, having Urban Meyer definitely helped. But for this group, I think that speaks to it. Just the fact that you had so many of these guys who had worked with him for, 4 or 5 years at 3 different locations, like, for them to be this loyal, I think that says something to what he does as a leader. And players mentioned all the time, like, how sharp and how, orderly everything really is. They really admire it. And so even though he's not the most personable all the time, I think that they admire the ship that he runs.
I'm going to push back just a little bit, because I know more than a handful of those kiddos, and it ain't always rosy. But
Right. No. I totally agree.
Okay.
I'm saying, like, the leaders.
Okay.
The ones that speak in front of us. Obviously, again,
okay.
Like, you could be
well, I mean, like, Duvernay picked up a C in the middle of the season, so, like, there's that. I get that point, right? But no, I was just like people were hot in November, especially after the Iowa State loss.
Yeah. Yes.
And because it comes after. Yeah. It's just that's the other thing. You're taking L's to people that you cannot afford to take L's to. You just can't.
Oh, yeah.
And be the University of Texas. You can't get embarrassed by Baylor. You can't get embarrassed by Texas Christian. You can't get beat by Iowa State. I mean, Oklahoma and LSU, everybody's going to let that slide. I mean, Texas fans going to take it hard because it's Oklahoma. But knowing that LSU is undefeated and is probably going to play in the college football playoff makes you feel just a little bit better, knowing that you put 38 up on that team. That said, you got to finish, man. And that, I wonder this. Has anybody said anything about Yancey McKnight? Because the amount of kids that had injuries has me immediately go, okay, what's the strength coach doing? What's the programming? And I know that they're really, really tight. I know that. But my goodness, man, having to play as many guys as they did on defense and try to figure it out with a bunch of freshmen. I felt for Todd Orlando, but like many people, I expected that dude to keep his job because he did the best he could with what he had. And yet, and still, no. See you, Todd. I'm sorry about you. And I think that dude could actually end up getting fired into a head coaching job, just not a Power 5 one like we might have all expected had this season gone a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, and to your point about Yancey McKnight, it's not even just the leaders at this point. Throughout the entire year, you had players, both, in rotation roles and the starters, talk about how great of a job Yancey McKnight has done, just in terms of building. And so it was really shocking throughout the course of the season. Like, Texas had a problem with stingers at one point. And, Tom Herman was actually asked about that. He was like, he wasn't sure what was going on. It's an anomaly. It really is. I couldn't tell you what the, root of the players getting injured so often was. It just seemed to happen at Texas. But that being said, your point about Todd Orlando, like I was surprised too. I was surprised he was the first name to be listed. I thought, again, they didn't face the strongest units over the course of the final stretch of the year, where you talk about TCU, Kansas State. They played Iowa State, but then you talk Baylor, and then even Texas Tech. Like, they slowed them down after the first quarter. So, I mean, again, like, to your point, it's really unfortunate because, again, they suffered in a ridiculous amount of injuries in their secondary. But that being said, I think there were little tweaks, like, for example, in the Texas Tech game. Granted, Texas Tech probably does not have the best offensive line in the conference, but, simple little tweak where you put the defensive lineman going from 4-eye tech to 5-eye, and they're rushing on the outside shoulder of offensive tackles. I mean, it resulted in all 4 defensive linemen getting sacks for Texas. So, and literally their unit had struggled. That had been a big question Orlando faced routinely at press conference over and over again about why isn't your defensive line generating sacks or more quarterback pressures. It's because he relied so much on safeties and linebackers and, unique exotic blitzes that he was carving up. So, it at the end of the day, it is what it is. And you didn't see enough development from the players who were on the field. There were moments, certainly, absolutely. I totally agree, where you look at, like, linebacker unit, the cornerbacks, it definitely flashed. But at the same time, it was not consistent. Like, more often than not, you're going to remember when the quarterbacks got burned. Then, they could play 2 quarters of great football, but if they play 2 quarters of bad football, it's really going to stand out. And same with the linebackers within his scheme. The linebacker unit, even though they only had one senior member, actually, they didn't have any juniors either. They had no upperclassmen in that unit this year. That unit struggled a lot, and it's really integral to how Orlando does things. So, at the end of the day, I'm shocked, but also not, if that makes sense.
I thought they were getting it flipped around against West Virginia, man. Like, I was like, no, the secondary is actually terrifying, because I'm looking at Deshaun and I'm looking at Anthony, and I'm looking, man, I'm going, wait a second. Y'all don't even need Caden Stearns, which is a lie. But but I was going, hey, y'all out here balling. I like it. Like your boy Asai. Like, he out there balling. But outside of that, when I'm looking at how you really depend on having that extra safety on the field and what a guy like Brandon Jones does for you and how Caden Stearns really does make up for a lot of your deficiencies, I'm also wildly intrigued to see what happens with Herb Hand, because Sam was the truth. Not a whole lot of other folks were, though. And I was like, Sam's name, Herb's not on this list. And, I went to the University of Tulsa for undergrad, right? So I know about Herb, and I love me some Herb, but I was like, Herb gonna get fired. And he hasn't been reassigned to anything either.
No.
And so it's like, he's gonna just stand pat?
Hey, man, I don't know what to tell you about that, because they led the Big 12 in sacks.
Yeah.
And again, some
allowed
of it,
33.
Some of it's really 33. That's the great part. And there were a lot more that Sam probably should have taken realistically. But at the same time, there were a lot that were, you're looking at Ehlinger and you're just like, dude, you cannot hang on to the football. Or again, I think the biggest detriment was the receivers just not getting any sort of separation whatsoever downfield. Sam hanging onto the football and just kind of being like, hey, someone get open, and not being the case, ends up being in the sack. That happened a lot more than I think him, just not understanding what was coming at him. But at the same time, there's just so many, and that's the funny part. Like, the coaches will sit and explain that, I remember Tim Beck trying to sit and explain that. Like there's so many factors that, had a part of that number. But at the same time, the amount of times it was on the offensive line is extremely concerning, especially when you have a guy who's being touted as a potential first-round pick on the left side. And it's at the University of Texas. Like, again, I think that's the biggest thing. Like that, every time I try to be measured about something, and this I hope this does not come off as wrong. Like, there are high expectations at Texas. Like, there is no
for no good reason, though, dog.
Yeah, that's also true. But the expectation is there. So when you're not getting it done, your job is going to be under scrutiny, heavy scrutiny. Yeah. Like, it needs to be done right now. Like, that's the funny part. Like, when Sam Ehlinger came out after the post game for Texas Tech, he said, "Hey, Rome isn't built in a day." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." He finally took a measured approach. Fans were furious, and I mean, I get it. Yeah, he said we were back. Like all of, not even. I mentioned that. Like not even like 12 months before. Like he said, "You're back." I get you being upset at him for saying, but hey, he's taking a measured approach. But you're at the University of Texas where you cannot be, not saying you can't be measured, but there is no time for Rome can be built down the road. Rome needs to be here right now.
Well, I mean, and first Vertuno puts out like a portion of that quote, and then when you saw how he had couched it in, hey, we have winning seasons, we're building, going, okay, they're not going to be, that's not much better, but it's not as bad as what you immediately read via a tweet, right? So that was one half of it. The other part about it is I look at a place like Arizona State who goes 7-5, and I'm going, they're going this outstanding season, right? And I'm bringing it up for good reason because I know that's your squad, right? And you're like, no, we good, we straight, we got the Territorial Cup, we knocked off Oregon. This is a good season. I'm fine with this.
Oh, dude, that's what I'm saying. Wow, you hit it right on the head. And see, that's the thing, as a reporter, obviously, and a young reporter at that, you're like, man, don't let past experiences influence. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I mean, like this at Arizona State, man, like 7-5, you're on an upward trajectory, But again, that goes back into, the place that you're at, and being Sam Ehlinger being a public figure, and the status that he has.
All the people listening to this are like, this is not Arizona State.
Exactly. That's why
the hell with Arizona State.
Exactly, and that's why I was like, look, I fully in the moment as I was writing, I'm like, no, fully removed. So I hope that's clear. That being said, again, like this is University of Texas. 7-5 ain't good. Yeah. 8-4 really is like 9-3, okay. 10 wins, like that is that should be the minimum at Texas. Yeah. I grew up, and look at again, I'm 23. I grew up, watching Vince Young. I grew up watching Colt McCoy, that whole Mac Brown era. I'm used to Texas being, we're going to roll over everybody that we play.
Right.
So, again, like I get where fans are coming from. It's weird to me too.
So I put it this way when we're talking about Tom Herman and what we're going to figure out about him really lickety-split quick. Nick Saban hires Major Applewhite and Kevin Steele, I believe, as his first two coordinators at Bama, right? Gets rid of one. The other goes to play coach running backs at Texas, brings in Jim McElwain and Kirby Smart, right? And basically continues to do all this stuff because it's just not where he needs it to be. And that's remarkable when you think about, one, turnover at Alabama in the coaching staff is just part of life. It's just what happens. Whereas, and they win championships. They've won 5 of the last 10, right? And this is going to be the first year that they haven't played in the playoff.
Right.
But that's also because Nick Saban is built for that. He's built to have it all on his shoulders, and he's built for looking people in the face and going, yeah, this ain't going to get it done. It's like, yo, coach, we averaged like 400 yards of offense. Did it get it done? Because we're standing here. We're talking in December, not preparing for the game that we want to be prepared for. Sorry, you got to go. Or the other part that I look at this with is who wants it and who doesn't. Because I got this long theory about the places in college football where college football matters and where it's nice, right? I'd say in Oklahoma, it matters. In Nebraska, it matters. At Texas, I'm not always sure that it does. Whereas a place like Houston says, we'll fire you for going 8-5. And then they do that noise. And that was the dude, as I just pointed out, who was a coordinator for Nick Saban at Bama. And that's the favorite son of the state of Texas, let alone the Longhorns, and they fired him.
Right.
And but what is, Tom is trying to basically put down a marker right now, saying I'm not going to be the guy that held on to my guys and let my program continue to be mediocre. Because is there anything in life worse than just being mediocre? Nah, man, blow it up or go all out. Put the gas on the floor. I wanted to end with this question for you, though. As a guy who, again, you've been at every game, you were at the ups and downs. You saw them be embarrassed. You saw how embarrassed they were. And we all saw I saw Tom Herman's post game against, I want to say it's Baylor or Iowa State, where he just looked utterly shattered. And I'd never seen that from that guy because he's not bravado, right? But he is a confident human being. Mm-hmm. What's going to tell you the most about how you feel about where the Texas football program is when we talk again like the spring? What are you going to be looking for the most?
Wow, that is a good question because I've been thinking about like the questions facing the coaches that are coming in. Wow. Dang, man, that's like a question I can't do lickety-split. I got to think about that.
No, it's cool. It's cool. No, take your time.
That's a good question, though. Man, because there's just so much that is facing, like, the staff that's coming in. Mm-hmm. Again, I think if we hear, like, Herman talk about them being aligned, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Like, whether or not there is a clear alignment in what, is at stake here. One, for Herman. And then two, how much autonomy he's giving the people that are coming in. Like, is he going to be, overseeing? I mean, obviously he's going or expected, like you're expected to have a hand, or Herman is expected to have a hand, how the offense is formed and everything else. Because again, we're talking about potentially blowing up his pro spread, which, is his baby.
Right.
And you probably don't want that. Mm-hmm. So whether or not it depends on who they hire, especially at the offensive coordinator spot. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like whether or not he's willing to give whoever he hires at OC the autonomy to run their offense and develop the guys that they have and put them in positions to succeed. Because you look at the past year, and I don't think that any of the players really maximized outside of Duvernay being in that slot position.
Addendum. I need to ask you this question because I'm probably going to get yelled if I don't. What are the chances of Casey Thompson jumping into the portal?
Ooh.
Because he did that trick once. I said that you can't do that trick again.
But, I would put it at about, between 30 and 40, let's say 35%. Because, again, the quarterback crop that's coming in behind him, you got Hudson Card, Quentin Jackson, like, those guys are pretty talented. And that's not to say Casey Thompson isn't talented. Like, he's shown, I think, in all the times he's had mop-up duty, he's looked solid. And Tim Beck, granted, think what you want of him as an offensive coordinator, but as a quarterback coach, I mean, Herman has talked about him being the reason for Sam Ehlinger having the type of progression that he's had. So, and really and truly, we did see Casey Thompson experience some growth too. So, I think that he's got potential to be a starter somewhere, whether that's at the University of Texas or not. I think, again, it depends on who the OC is too. Whether, he's in a system where he's required to run the football, or whether the guy who probably has more pro elements where you want a stature quarterback, which I highly doubt because, again, the guys that they have coming in currently. But that being said, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up staying. I would lean towards him staying at this point.
Does Roschon Johnson go back to playing quarterback?
Personally, I don't think he does.
Okay.
I'd be shocked just because, again, like, he wants to, and that's the thing. He wants to.
Okay.
He wants to, and there's going to be a conversation. But when you look at him, dude, he's 6'2", 220. You can probably play him at safety, which he played growing up. He's looked pretty solid at running back all year. I just think there's probably a better position for him than quarterback because the tape that I've seen of him in high school, I think he's solid. I don't know if he's going to be able to outduel these guys, Card and Jackson, unless he's been practicing on, unless there's that natural
Jackson might not even play quarterback, dog. Like that's
the other thing.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. So we'll see. We'll see.
No, and you make a good point, right? Because like I think his older brother like lurks on the channel, but he's more dual than he is quarterback. But that's also because nobody's actually taking their time to develop him into a better passer in a way that's like with Sam Ehlinger had to be developed. I would point to, if I'm Herman and I want the kid to play running back, and I probably do, be like, yo, you stick with running back, you're going to play first game of the season, and you're the second best tailback on the roster with Keontae Ingram on it. Do you want to be the quarterback and sit down? Like, because those are your options right now. You're either going to sit down or you're going to go play 4 years of running back at the University of Texas. There are worse things in the world. I would do my best to try to convince him, yo, man, let's try to do our Cedric Benson, okay? Okay? Let's be on our Cedric Benson and not our David Ash. How about that? How about we do that? You know what I mean?
Right. And that at the same time, though, look at, man, if you're looking big picture, and this is just my opinion, like if you're looking big picture, you could go somewhere else, play quarterback, and then end up developing enough to end up playing in the NFL.
It's true.
Which is possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, man.
In terms of him playing running back, I mean, he was solid. I don't know if he's a difference maker yet. I mean, again, it's his first year playing it full time. Maybe he gets better than being all conference, but
I got a dream Texas scenario. Well, I always think of ways to antagonize Texas fans because it's kind of what I do. But if Tyler Huntley goes down against Oregon, not like season ending, but like, I don't know, concussion protocol or whatever, and Cam Rising has to come in there, and Cam Rising wins Pac-12 championship, and Cam Rising is going to be the starting quarterback for Utah in a college football playoff setting. How pissed would Texas fans be?
I don't know if they'd be. I mean,
okay, all right.
Be upset. Okay, but I mean, at the same time, they'll be upset just because it's not Texas playing in.
Okay, fair enough.
I think they'll be more upset at that than the fact that it's Cameron Rising playing in that game. I mean, it'll be more, why isn't Texas there? Like, the guy that they recruited is there. So,
to which I would say, Texas recruits everybody. You're Texas. This is my man Kaelen Jones of The Athletic. Give him a follow on the Twitters at Kaelen Jones. Man, I want to commend you. Honestly, you've been doing an outstanding job at your post. When you write, I read, I learn something, I carry it on to the show. I'm able to reference it, and then you're kind enough to do stuff like this. Thank you so much, Kaelen.
Yeah, man, of course. Appreciate you for having me, man. Seriously.
All right, I'm going to get up with you in a little bit.
All right, man.
Kaelen is money. And if you don't follow Kaelen on the Twitters, you're doing it wrong. If you don't subscribe to The Athletic, you're doing it wrong. I think that is going to do it for this show. If you like the live streams, please like and subscribe to this channel and let me know that you do like the live streams, because this is the first time I've done back-to-back live streams in a very long time. I think I got the hardware kind of under control, and it doesn't feel as, well, grotesque as it did in the very beginning. Folks that have been around since Jump, they understand. All right, it's going to do it for me. Doses.